Welcome to today's deep dive. We are really thrilled you're here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So for this session, we're taking a stack of folklore research and zeroing in on a rather obscure, incredibly dark German tale.
Right, Titai Hendricks version.
Yeah,
Or, the Three Journeymen.
exactly. And our mission today, just so you know, it isn't just to read you an old bedtime story. We are going to deconstruct the source material to understand the mechanics of this really bizarre, highly calculated supernatural sting operation.
A sting operation orchestrated by none other than the devil himself.
Right. And we're going to look at how a set of rigid, foolish-sounding rules can perfectly expose a hidden monster who is just operating in plain sight.
Yeah, and because this is a pure deep dive into the text itself, we're going to really tear down the psychology of the characters. We'll examine the, legalistic loopholes of this universe.
Oh, there's so many loopholes.
So many. And we'll explore the terrifying patience required to pull off a plot of this magnitude.
Yeah, it's wild. So to set the stage for you, imagine being offered a staggering, life-changing deal.
Okay.
You are offered unlimited, bottomless wealth. You will never have to worry about a bill or a meal for the rest of your life.
Sounds pretty good so far.
Right. But to get it, you must sign what is essentially a demonic non-disclosure agreement.
Right, a demonic NDA.
Exactly. And this NDA restricts your speech, not just about a company or a product. It restricts your entire vocabulary to exactly 3 highly incriminating, foolish-sounding phrases.
You basically lose your voice to gain the world.
Yeah, and it's the absolute definition of a trap.
It really is.
Yeah.
When you look closely at the constraints, it becomes clear this is, it's not a gift at all.
No, not at all.
It's a highly specialized tool designed for a very specific job.
So let's look at the candidates who actually take this deal. The text starts with 3 ordinary craftsmen, specifically journeymen.
Right.
And these are guys who have finished their apprenticeships and, they're required to travel from town to town looking for work to build their skills.
Yeah. But the economic reality in the text is just grim.
Yeah, they are completely out of work. Their clothes are torn and they are literally starving.
Starved to death, yeah.
So they agree that if they can't find work in the next town, they'll leave their forwarding addresses with an innkeeper and just split up.
And that historical context is, it's vital for understanding what happens next.
How so?
Well, journeymen were a normal part of society back then, but they were inherently vulnerable. They were transient.
Right. They didn't really have a home base.
Exactly. They belonged to no specific community, meaning they lacked a local safety net. So that desperation makes them the perfect leverage for an unconventional proposal.
Which is exactly what happens. While they're wandering the roads, they cross paths with a very richly dressed man.
Right.
He asks them about their situation. They basically pour out their hearts about their desperate poverty, and this wealthy stranger makes a massive pitch.
He tells them to stick with him, follow his instructions perfectly, and they will never lack for money again.
Right. He says there'll be great lords riding in carriages.
Which is the ultimate pitch to people who have literally nothing.
But one of the journeymen hesitates. He says he'll only agree if it doesn't endanger his soul or his ultimate salvation.
Yeah, he's starving, but he isn't willing to trade eternity for a meal.
Which is incredibly smart, because while the richly dressed man insists he has no claim on them, another journeyman looks down and spots the ultimate folkloric tell.
The horse foot.
Exactly. The stranger has 1 human foot and 1 horse foot. The gig is up. They realize immediately they are negotiating with the devil.
And obviously the men panic. They want to back out immediately.
But the devil calms them down with this massive revelation. He explicitly states, I am not after you, I am after someone else's soul.
Right. He says he's after someone whose measure is about to be full.
That phrase is so creepy.
It is. And that phrase, whose measure is about to be full, is the structural foundation of the entire narrative.
What does that mean exactly?
Think of it like a container of sins that is practically overflowing. The devil in this specific mythology is not a chaotic, evil force blindly harvesting souls.
Right, he's not just grabbing anyone.
Exactly. He has a specific target in mind, someone who has already accumulated a massive karmic debt.
But that raises a major logistical question for me. If he is the devil, right, wielding all this immense supernatural power,
Yeah.
why does he need 3 random starving craftsmen to catch this other person? I mean, it's like a highly targeted corporate acquisition. Why not just drag the target straight to hell himself?
It all comes down to jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction.
Yeah. The text paints a picture of a universe with very strict legalistic boundaries. The devil cannot simply take someone. The target has to fully condemn themselves of their own free will to top off that measure.
Oh, I see. So he needs a catalyst.
Exactly. He needs agents in the human world to create an opportunity for the target to reveal their true nature. The journeymen are entirely safe from his wrath, precisely because they aren't the target.
They are just the bait.
They are just the bait.
And the bait takes the form of this loophole contract. The devil promises to magically keep their pockets full of money at all times.
But in exchange, they are subjected to a brutal speech restriction.
Brutal is the right word. The first journeyman can only ever say, all three of us.
The second can only say, for the money.
And the third can only say, and that was right.
Right. They have to speak them in that exact continuous loop.
If they utter a single other word, the money vanishes forever.
Just consider the psychological weight of that for a moment. 3 phrases become the totality of your existence.
Yeah, you can't express pain or joy or fear.
You can't even defend yourself. You are voluntarily reducing your humanity down to a mechanical function.
Which brings us to the operational phase of this sting. Because, of course, they take the deal.
The starvation outweighs the weirdness of the contract.
So the devil fills their pockets with endless cash and gives them their arching orders. They are told to go to a very specific inn in the city.
And this is where the narrative shifts from supernatural negotiation into a bizarre sociological experiment.
Oh, totally.
They enter a crowded human space bearing these artificial constraints.
Right. And the moment they sit down at this inn, the dialogue turns darkly comedic.
It really does.
The host, the innkeeper, walks over to take their order. He asks, "Do you want something to eat?" And the first journeyman, forced to stick to the script, answers, "All three of us."
Which happens to be a perfectly logical, contextual answer to that specific question.
It's perfect. The innkeeper nods and says, "Yes, I think so too." Then the second journeyman chimes in, "For the money."
Again, it completely tracks. They are at a commercial establishment. Food requires payment.
So the innkeeper replies, "That goes without saying," and the third finishes the loop, "And that was right."
To which the innkeeper warmly agrees, yes, indeed, it was right.
It is this absurdly synchronized conversation that manages to masquerade as normal human interaction.
But the facade breaks down quickly when the bill comes.
Yeah, the loop repeats exactly as before, but the text notes that the journeyman pays significantly more than the innkeeper asked for.
They are essentially throwing endless piles of the devil's money at him.
Which is such a red flag.
It is. And that overpayment is the crucial variable. The other guests in the tavern are observing this.
Right.
They hear these men speaking like broken mechanical dolls and immediately label them as fools. They explicitly tell the innkeeper that these men are not right in the head.
And the innkeeper verbally agrees with the crowd. He acknowledges their bizarre nature. It really reminds me of dealing with a broken automated chatbot.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
You know, when you type a nuanced question into a customer service chat, and the robot just spits back the same 3 pre-programmed prompts regardless of what you say.
Right. And the human brain naturally tries to project meaning onto those responses at first.
Exactly. But eventually you realize the machine is broken. So my question is, why does the innkeeper play along? Is he just deliberately ignoring the massive red flags because they are overpaying him?
That is the core of his psychology right there. The innkeeper's greed entirely overrides his critical thinking.
He just doesn't care.
He doesn't. He sees them glitching out. He knows they're operating outside the bounds of normal behavior, but he dismisses them as a threat because their foolishness is profitable.
Wow.
He reduces them from human beings to mere sources of revenue.
Which sets up a devastating trap when the next piece of the puzzle walks through the door. Shortly after, a wealthy merchant arrives at the inn.
And he is carrying a heavy bag packed with gold.
Right. He looks over at our 3 journeymen, sees them malfunctioning in the corner, and gets incredibly anxious.
He immediately goes to the innkeeper and asks him to keep the bag of gold safe.
He specifically cites his fear that the crazy journeyman might steal it. He hands his entire fortune over to the host of the inn.
If we pull back and look at the sociology here, it is a brilliant commentary on how we allocate trust.
Yeah, it really is.
The merchant looks at the outsiders, the transient workers who don't conform to societal norms, and instinctively views them as a threat. Meanwhile, he implicitly trusts the innkeeper simply because the innkeeper represents the establishment.
And I want you, the listener, to think about that dynamic in your own life. Think about how quickly you might hand over your credit card to a bartender or a hotel clerk just because they are standing behind a piece of polished mahogany.
So true.
We confer a tremendous amount of moral authority onto people who hold positions of institutional normalcy. The merchant is doing exactly that.
Right.
He trusts the guy pouring the drinks while fearing the guys who are quietly sitting in the corner paying their bills in full.
And that societal prejudice is exactly what the devil is banking on.
Oh, absolutely.
He hasn't forced anyone to do anything. He's merely set up a scenario that weaponizes human greed and outgroup bias. The merchant trusts the actual monster while fearing the harmless bait.
So the tension breaks that night. Once the tavern is quiet and everyone is asleep, the innkeeper takes that heavy bag of gold into his private room.
He feels its weight. The temptation peaks.
And at midnight, the innkeeper and his wife creep into the wealthy merchant's room, armed with a wood axe.
The inclusion of a wood axe is a stark, visceral detail.
It really is.
It strips away any fairy tale whimsy and grounds the text in brutal reality.
They murder the merchant in his bed for the gold. But the most chilling detail to me is what happens next.
Yeah.
After committing this horrific, bloody slaughter, the text casually notes that the innkeeper and his wife simply went back to their room and went to sleep.
That casualness speaks volumes about the innkeeper's character.
It's terrifying.
It validates the devil's prerequisite that this man's measure was already full. A normal person would be consumed by panic or remorse. The innkeeper simply goes to bed, fully confident in his plan.
So when morning comes, the chaos begins. The merchant is discovered dead in a pool of blood. The guests panic, forming an uproar.
And without missing a beat, the innkeeper points straight at our three journeymen.
He declares that the three crazy craftsmen committed the murder, and the guests, driven by that same prejudice we discussed earlier, immediately agree.
They say it couldn't possibly have been anyone else.
Right.
The mob mentality takes over. The guests already decided the outsiders were wrong, so making the leap to murderous requires almost no effort.
So the innkeeper drags the journeyman in front of the crowd to interrogate them. And this is where that demonic speech restriction turns from an inconvenience into a waking nightmare.
It's the ultimate frame-up.
It is. The innkeeper publicly asks them, "Did you kill the merchant?" And the first journeyman, magically bound to the contract, is forced to answer.
All three of us.
The innkeeper, playing to the crowd, asks why.
For the money.
And the third journeyman seals their fate.
And that was right.
The innkeeper turns to the horrified crowd and says, "You hear it yourselves," they confess.
And they are instantly thrown into a dungeon to await execution.
It is the most flawless, lock-and-key false confession imaginable, but I have a major philosophical issue with this setup.
Oh.
What's that?
Look at what the devil did. He introduced these strange men, he introduced unlimited money, and he gave the innkeeper the perfect scapegoats. Did the devil's elaborate trap actually cause the innkeeper to snap?
Right, like, is this a case of supernatural entrapment?
Exactly. Was the innkeeper going to do this anyway?
That is the central tension of the text's morality. The narrative strongly suggests this is not entrapment, but rather the removal of consequence.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, the devil didn't plant greed in the innkeeper's heart, and he certainly didn't hand him the wood axe. The innkeeper and his wife committed the violence entirely on their own volition.
Right.
What the devil provided was the illusion of absolute security.
So the innkeeper looked at the broken behavior of the journeyman and thought, I can finally act on my darkest impulses, and these idiots will easily take the fall.
Precisely. The devil weaponized the innkeeper's own arrogance. He gave the innkeeper a scenario where he believed he could commit murder and get away with it perfectly.
The text implies the innkeeper was always capable of this. He was just waiting for a risk-free opportunity.
Meanwhile, our three innocent journeymen are rotting in a dungeon. They are terrified, knowing they are scheduled to be beheaded. But in the middle of the night, the devil visits them in their cell.
And surprisingly, he offers them comfort.
Yeah, he tells them to hold out for just one more day, warning them not to throw away their luck. He promises that not a single hair on their heads will be harmed.
Which demonstrates a fascinating level of contractual integrity.
How so?
In many folklore traditions, the devil is a trickster who looks for ways to cheat his victims.
Right, he's always looking for a loophole himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, he is actively managing his assets. He made a deal, they follow the rules, and he's enforcing his end of the bargain.
He's basically acting like a project manager, making sure his independent contractors don't quit before the project launches.
That's a great way to put it.
But despite those assurances, the next morning feels terrifyingly real. They are dragged into court. The judge looks down at them, and the loop plays out one final devastating time.
It's agonizing to read.
The judge asks if they are the murderers. They say, all three of us. He asks why they struck the man dead. They answer, for the money. The judge is thoroughly disgusted and asks if they do not fear the consequences of sin.
And the third man replies, and that was right.
Put yourself in the judge's shoes. This goes beyond a simple confession. From the perspective of the court, these three men are exhibiting unrepentant, arrogant defiance.
They appear to be actively mocking the justice system.
So the judge sentences them to death immediately. They are dragged out to the public scaffold. And because of the laws of the time, the innkeeper, acting as the host of the murdered man, is required to stand in the inner execution circle to witness the beheading.
Right.
The executioner is standing there. His sword is literally drawn and bare in the air. We are talking about the absolute final millisecond before their heads roll.
The tension is stretched to its absolute breaking point.
And then the text shifts into pure cinematic spectacle.
It really is like a movie scene.
A carriage comes tearing into the execution square. It is pulled by 4 blood-red foxes, and it is moving with such intense speed that fire is striking out of the cobblestones.
Just an incredible image.
Someone is leaning out of the window, frantically waving a white cloth. The executioner pauses, lowering his sword, announcing that a pardon is arriving. And out of this flaming, supernatural carriage steps the devil, completely disguised as a distinguished, magnificent nobleman.
A literal demon swooping in as a deus ex machina.
He steps up to the scaffold and announces to the entire crowd that these 3 men are innocent. Then he turns to the journeyman and officially lifts the speech ban.
He tells them, "You may now speak. Tell them what you saw and heard."
The oldest journeyman, finally regaining his voice, points directly at the innkeeper standing proudly in the circle and says, "We didn't kill the merchant. The murderer is standing right there."
And he doesn't just make an accusation. He provides irrefutable physical proof.
He tells the judge and the authorities, if you want a true sign, go down into his cellar. You will find many others hanging there that he has murdered.
Which is just a horrific revelation.
The judge immediately sends the executioner's men to investigate. And sure enough, they find a cellar completely full of bodies. The innkeeper is seized, dragged up the very scaffold he was just observing, and is beheaded on the spot.
It is a twist that completely recontextualizes the innkeeper. The murder of the merchant wasn't a sudden crime of passion triggered by a bag of gold.
No.
The innkeeper was a prolific serial killer. He'd been using his inn as a trap for years, hiding in plain sight as a respected pillar of the community.
But I have to pause on the dramatic timing here.
Okay.
This is like a Hollywood courtroom drama ending. But why did the devil wait until the absolute last second with the sword literally drawn to intervene? If you knew the innkeeper was a serial killer, why not expose him the morning of the murder?
It comes down to the psychology of hubris. Yeah. The devil requires theatricality for total psychological destruction. By waiting until the very last possible second, the devil ensures the innkeeper feels entirely, undeniably victorious.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. The innkeeper is standing in the execution circle, watching his perfect scapegoats about to take the fall for his crimes. He thinks he has outsmarted the merchant, the guests, the judge, and the universe itself.
He thinks he's untouchable.
Exactly. So when the devil intervenes at that exact millisecond, the innkeeper is violently yanked from the peak of absolute security down to absolute doom. It maximizes the punishment.
So if we look at the resolution of this contract, everyone gets exactly what they signed up for. The innkeeper is executed. The devil turns to the 3 journeymen and says, "Now I have the soul I wanted." He retrieves his targeted acquisition.
And the journeymen?
They get their freedom, their voices back, and they retain the magical pockets of money for the rest of their lives.
The contract is fulfilled to the absolute letter. It is a terrifyingly efficient system.
This text leaves you with such a profound perspective on the mechanics of deception. It highlights how rigid constraints, even constraints that make you look like a complete fool, can sometimes be the exact tools necessary to expose the truth.
Absolutely.
The people in the tavern, the merchant, the judge, they all looked at these 3 men and saw a threat based on erratic behavior. But the real monster was pouring their drinks. The real monster was cloaked in the absolute safety of societal normalcy.
It should make you question the metrics you use to evaluate the people around you. How often do we trust someone merely because they fit seamlessly into the background of society?
Right.
And how often do we judge someone just because they operate outside our expected norms?
We started this deep dive exploring a demonic contract of silence, a trap that utilized human prejudice to catch a serial killer.
Yeah.
And while the mechanics of the sting are fascinating, there is one final lingering thought I want to leave you with that we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if the devil in this text only takes the souls of those who freely choose to do evil, and he actually orchestrates a sting to catch a serial killer, is he really the villain of this story?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Or is he actually acting as the ultimate terrifying agent of karma?
Something for you to ponder long after we sign off.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.